Hi everyone and welcome to our next tutorial. In this tutorial, we're going to take a look at something called a for loop. A for loop is used in programming to allow us to do something over and over a certain number of times. So maybe we need something to happen 10 times or 50 times or 200 times. We can do that with what we call a for loop. And here's what it looks like. We're going to come down to this line right here, and the syntax, the way that you have to build a for loop looks like this. You're going to type in for, and then in brackets, we're going to let some variable, we'll let it be x in this case, but you could use any letter of the alphabet. We're going to let it start equaling 0. And then we're going to follow that with a semicolon, and then we're going to have this here, x is less than 200. And what that means is we're going to let the for loop start with x equal to 0, and we're going to continue looping a certain number of times. We're going to keep looping as long as this is true. So as long as x is less than 200, keep looping. Then what we're going to do after this semicolon here is we're going to increment x. So the first time through x is equal to 0, we're going to add 1 to x, and then the next time through, you're going to see that x will be equal to 1. Then the next time through, then x will be equal to 1, and we're going to keep incrementing. So here's what the syntax looks like. We're going to have the for loop, then we have brackets. We're going to have the initial value for x. X is going to start at 0. It's going to continue looping as long as x is less than 200. This is going to increment x each time by 1. Now, if we wanted to, we could start with x starting at 10, and we could increment from 10 going up by 1 each time. I could start x at 50 if I want, and it looks like that. Now, what if I had something like this? Would this do anything at all? Well, if we said that x is equal to 300, and we're going to say continue as long as x is less than 200, well, this isn't going to do anything because it needs to be below 200 to execute. So if I did that, this won't do anything inside here. We need to make sure that if this is 200 and we're going to do something here, this has to be less than. So let's start, say, at x equals 0. Hopefully that makes sense. And then we're going to increment by 1. If we wanted to, we could actually step up by 5 each time. So the for loop, as it goes through, it could start at 0 first time through, and then we're going to add 5 to it, so it's going to be x equals 5. Next times through, it'll be x equals 10. Next time through, it'll be x equals 15, and so on, until this is no longer true. So that's what it looks like. So what we're going to do is we're going to show this by graphing. And in math, you've learned how to graph a linear equation in the form y is equal to mx plus b, where m represents the slope and b represents the y-intercept. So if I had this equation here, y is equal to x plus 100. This is in the form y is equal to mx plus b. The value in front of x is a 1. So the slope of this line is 1. That means the rise is 1 and the run is 1. This here tells you the y-intercept. So it's going to cross the y-axis at positive 100. What this does down here is plots the point. So the first time through, x will be equal to 0. So this is 0. We're going to add 100, and the y value is 100. So we're going to plot the point 0, 100. Then the next time through, we're going to go up by, let's say, 1, so that this time x is going to go up by 1. So x is equal to 1. We're going to add 100. Y is equal to 101. So we're going to plot the point 1, 101. So let's put some comments in here. So the first point plotted is 0, 100. Then next point is going to be 1, 101. And then the next point after that will be 2, 102. And so on. So first time through, it plots the point 0, 100. Then it plots the point 1, 101. And then 2, 102. Notice they're always different by a value of 100. And that's defined by this equation right here. So when I graph this, you can see this is what we get here. This point right here is 0, 100. Then the for loop executes again, and it plots the point 1, 101. Then it executes again, and it plots the point 2, 102. It's going to keep going until this is no longer true. So it's going to get to a value where x equals 199. Well, if x is 199 and we add it to 100, that'll be 299. So we can write here, we'll make some space, final point is the point 199, 299. That'll be this last point, and that's this point right here. After that, x will be equal to 200. Well, once x is equal to 200, this is no longer true, and this for loop stops executing. So let's review here. This is a for loop. This tells us where to start. This tells us it will continue as long as this is true. This tells you how much it should increment. Now, what I do inside the for loop is up to me. All I'm doing is plotting points, but you could do whatever you wanted inside the for loop here. Notice that we have an open curly brace here and a closed curly brace. I must have that for my for loop. I'm telling this inside here to do whatever I want to do. So let's take a look at another example. If I change this slightly, what if I changed the y-intercept where it crosses the y-axis? What if I say the y-intercept is going to be 200? Well, what's that going to look like here when I graph this? Well, notice it's gone up. This is where it's crossing the y-axis, which is positive 200. I could change this here, and I could say change it so it's going to cross the y-axis at 300. And there you're going to see it's up there. Notice the slope stays the same. We haven't changed the slope of the line. If I put this back to 50, I'm changing the y-intercept. So then it looks like this. If I want to continue this even further? Well, I need to go further in the x direction. I need more points. How do I get more points? I'm going to go here and I'm going to change this to tell it to continue as long as x is less than 300. So if I run that, then you can see it carries on further. If I change it to 400, then it looks like that. What if I change the amount that it increments? What if I change this so every time it goes up by 10? What's it going to look like when I plot the points? Well, now you can actually see the points. Before, they were actually blended together, so it looked like a straight line. But now we can spread them apart. If I made this 20, you can see that the x is increasing by 20 each time. And now those dots are spread out even further. So let's go back and let's change this back to 1. Let's change this back to 200. And let's go ahead and change the value of the slope. The slope is the m value. That's the value in front of x. What I can do is I can say, let's make the slope equal to 2. So I'm going to need to put 2 times, that's shift 8. That's a little star. That's 2 times x plus 50. And now when I graph this, look at, it's changed the slope. It's increasing linear at a faster rate. That's because the m value is now 2. If I change that to 3, I'm changing the slope. Rise is 3, the run is 1. So now you can see it's sloped even more. If I take the slope and change it to a value less than 1, so how about 0.5? If the slope is 0.5, that's the same as 1/2. If the slope is 1/2, then it looks like that. If the slope is, say, 1/10, well, 1/10 is the same as saying 0.1. And if I graph it, then it looks like that. It has very little slope, but you can see it still does slope. Now, let's just go back. I'm just going to put this back to 1x plus 50. And there, that's what we originally had. The next part, you need to know, what if I had a negative slope? So if I put in a negative slope, so if I put a -1, what's it look like? Well, hopefully you remember from math, when you have a negative slope and the line goes up and to the left. Let me just change the y-intercept here so we can make this look like so. Now we have a negative slope. So now the line goes up and to the left. If it goes up and to the right, it has a positive slope. So there, that's how we can graph sloped lines using processing. Now, what about if I wanted to do a vertical line or a horizontal line? Well, we're going to try it here. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to keep this here, and just so you have that code to look at, I'm going to select this with my mouse, and I'm going to go Control C. Control C copies that code, and then I'm going to go down here and I'm going to go Control V, paste. So now I basically have the same code here, and I'm going to change it. So I'm going to take this comment out because I'm going to change what I'm doing down here, and I'm going to see if you can figure out what I'm doing. Now what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to change this so that it's actually 0 times, so that's shift 8x plus 200. Now what happens when I have a slope of 0? What does it look like? Well, let's run it and see what it's like. Oh, so you actually get a horizontal line. So when the slope is equal to 0, think of it like this. There is no rise. It only has run. If I wanted to make that line longer, I'm going to have to change this here. If I want to move this line up and down, well, that's changing the y value. And the y value is represented by this here. Think of it, that's the y-intercept. It's crossing the y-axis at 200. If I want to move it up, I'm going to put that at 300, and now it looks like that. If I want to move it up even higher, it's going to be at 350, say, then it looks like that. What if I wanted to move it so I move this over so it's not actually starting at 0? Well, I could go here and say I want it to start at 50. So if x starts at 50 and then I press play, oh, there, it's moved it over. So now it's going from 50 all the way up to x is equal to 199. Remember, that's defined by this right here. So that's how you can draw a horizontal line. The slope is equal to 0. Now, what about if I wanted to do a vertical line? Well, again, I'm going to keep this code here so you can see it. I'm going to select this whole for loop again. I'm going to go Control C. I'm going to copy. I'm going to go down here, and I'm going to go Control V. So now, let's take a look here. This time, in order to do a vertical line, here's what the equation looks like. Watch close. A vertical line means that x is equal to some fixed number, let's say like 300. What's going to change is the y value. So I'm going to go up here and I'm going to change this for loop here. And I'm going to say that y is equal to 50. I'm going to change this to y. I'm going to change this to y. and I'm going to change this to y. And now let's take a look at what happens and see if we can make sense of it. So now look at, there it is right there. Notice that x is equal to 300. So if I start here and I go over 300, then this here is 300 comma something. So in this case here, it's actually 300 comma 50. Then it's 300 comma 51. Then it's 300 comma 52. Then it's 300 comma 53. It's all defined by changing the y value, which is what I've done here in this for loop. So there, now we know how to create sloped lines going up and to the right or up and to the left. We know how to do vertical lines. We know how to do horizontal lines. So let's go back here and make some comments. So this is to create a sloped line. This one here, this for loop right here, this is to create a horizontal line. And this one down here, comment, this is to create a vertical line. So there, we've done all of those. That is going to help you on the next assignment that we have in processing. Make sure you understand each one of these, practice with these. I highly suggest you try each one of these and make sure you fully understand before you move to the next assignment. One thing to note here that I forgot to mention at the start here, you're going to need this code here. What this code does in function draw right at the beginning is it changes the origin from, normally it's here, but we're going to make it here just to make our lives easier. So we can think this is 0, 0, and then this would be, say, 300, 0, or in here 300, 0. So what we're doing with these two lines of code is moving the origin from this point to this point. And I want you to do that for the next assignment. It's just going to make your life easier. So that's it for this video. Hope you learned about for loops and remembered how to graph lines, which you're going to do in grade 10 math and grade 11 math and grade 12 math. Hopefully that will help you when you come to that. That's it for this video. Thanks for watching. See you next time.